Good morning, everyone. Can I have your attention? Please grab some coffee, wind your conversations down, and find a place to sit. Catalyst will start in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Good morning. Good to see you all here this morning. If you guys can start finding your seats, we're going to get started. I just am here to welcome you all to Catalyst, our once-a-month gathering of area influencers and leaders coming together to connect and improve our community. Basically, that's why we're here, to build relationships. If you can, we ask you this every month, so if you can, pull out your phones and check in on Facebook. We like to make sure that people know, and that's kind of a good way to get the word out about what we do every first Thursday morning of the month. So pull out those phones, check in on Facebook for us. And then also on your tables, so you have a bunch of announcements on your tables, a bunch of little flyers and stuff. You also have a sign-in sheet and first-time guest cards. If you are a first-time guest, if you can please fill out that card. It has like a black end on it and says first-time guest. Please make sure you fill that out. We're going to let you know about all of our events and anything that's coming up. And if you can also sign in on the sign-in sheet, it gives us a good idea of how many we're serving, what to be prepared for, and who's here. So thank you. Okay. So please check out any of those flyers for any information. Make sure you take a look, and there'll be a few announcements at the end as well. This morning, we're going to do something a little bit different. And so what we are actually going to have you do is, once I'm done explaining, you're going to stand up. There's about 12 tables in here that have a month of the year on it. So what we would like you to do is when we're done explaining, you're going to stand up and you're going to find the table that has your birth month on it, okay? When you get there, I want you to find someone that you don't really know, or maybe two people you don't really know, and those are the people that you're going to talk to for the discussion question, okay? So when I'm done here, so find your birth month. Once you get there, maybe hold it up so other people can see it. But find your birth month, and then find somebody you don't know, and go ahead and talk to them. And we're gonna talk to them about who do you know that handles conflict well, and maybe a time where you didn't handle it quite as well as you would have liked. Okay? So find your birth month, and then make a new friend, and then talk about the questions. All right? Go.
Well, good morning. Good morning. I'm hoping there was a lot of laughter, laughing at yourself for the times that you did not carry on a conversation well. Good morning, Bob. Hey, how are you? It's been a while.
Doing well, sir. Good to see you.
Merry Christmas to you.
See?
So over the last weeks, and as we move into 2018, we are going to continue to have a conversation, all of us together, regarding what excellent leadership looks like in character and what it does in action. And our hope, our dream, our desire is to continue to shift the conversation in our communities about what excellent leadership looks like and what it does. And maybe we get on the same page together, begin to respond together in a manner that would be, we would begin to model for our communities what it looks like to have that skill, possessing that skill of civil conversations. When we got together early in the fall around the design team, we've got a group of some younger ones than me that are pretty sharp. We began to talk about what it means to be excellent leadership, and began to put together qualities of what an excellent leader looks like. And one of the themes and the threads that kept running through as we look in this year, and especially around the conversation that's going on in our communities, is this word empathy, this ability to be able to step in somebody else's huaraches, and in the middle of step into their sandals and to walk as they walk, to begin to enter into somebody's feelings and thoughts and their attitudes. To be able to step in to understand what they're trying to say, how they're feeling, what they're thinking, so that together you can come to some kind of agreement, whether you walk away and you disagree or you walk away and at least you understand. And when it comes to empathy, being able to comprehend or enter into somebody's feelings, how their thoughts and their attitudes, this first conversation we want to have this first discussion we want to have with you is this notion of civil conversation. How do excellent leaders carry on conversations so that you come to some kind of mutual understanding or agreement, or even in this generation about how do excellent leaders learn how to collaborate and bring along a group of people who might see things differently, but you want to end up at the same place together. And so as we began to consider how we might talk today about civil conversations, we thought of Mike Winther, who has written a textbook on debate strategies and techniques and how to have conversations without killing each other. Mike is a long Modesto resident. If I remember correctly, I remember when he was in high school, he went to Davis High, right, Mike? No. Oh, forget you then. I didn't. You must have been somebody else. Must have been the Mike Winther I met in jail. I thought that was you. Gosh, I had my spiel going, and okay. So I've known Mike for a while. Oh, Leadership Modesto. That's where I met you. Okay, so you know what? Let's welcome Mike up to the front.
Thank you, Marvin. Actually, Davis High would have been an improvement over where I went to high school. So, hey, well, God has seen fit to limit my voice a little bit today. My lovely wife of 38 years decided to share a good cold with me. So you'll have to endure a little bit of scratchiness this morning. When we put this topic together, I always love the idea of subtitles. You know, you get a topic, and the topic's good, but the subtitle can communicate a lot. And so Marvin doesn't know this, but I was thinking in my mind about some subtitles for this. And one subtitle might be, why am I always so right when the rest of the world is full of idiots? Now that would have been an interesting subtitle for the topic, right? Have you noticed in the world today that there is a lot of ad hominem attack? Do you guys know what ad hominem attack is? Ad hominem is Latin, or is it Greek? One or the other. And it means an attack or at the person. So when you're having a debate or discussion, an ad hominem attack is an attack not aimed at the argument, but an attack at the person. So if one person says, well, research shows this, and the opponent responds, well, maybe, but you're still ugly. Okay, that's an ad hominem attack. Do you guys ever watch TV? I don't watch a lot of TV, but I hear we've got some networks and things where it's common to get 2 or 3 or 4 guests here who debate each other. And sometimes it's productive civil debate, but I'm told that productive civil debate does not sell viewership. What sells viewership is when that debate becomes uncivil. And it seems like we belong to a society who has more of a world wrestling perspective than we have a desire to find truth. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we have dialogue, civil dialogue, how we really communicate with each other, and how we make a difference in the world. So I've got basically 4 objectives I think we need to have as a society that we need to look at. And then I'm going to talk about practical steps that we can do to achieve those objectives. And I think you're going to find when I'm done that maybe the solution is different than you might have thought coming in. But let's talk about these societal objectives. Here are the mindsets. And the reason why we have an uncivil society is because we have some bad philosophies, some bad mindsets in America. So let's talk about the good mindsets. Number 1, we need a society of people who are truth seekers. Now, on the surface, that seems good, but you might say, but wait a minute. Having all these people seeking their own truth is what's causing all the divisiveness. Well, have you ever heard of a philosophy called postmodernism? I mean, postmodernism basically says there are no absolute truths, right? Everything is relative. It's a relativist world. It's interesting, as we have moved from being a world that sees that there are some absolutes, and we've transitioned to a world where everything's relative, the more relative things are, the more people get upset with each other. You would think, no, you would think it'd be the other way around, wouldn't you? When people say, wow, yeah, there's no absolute truth, so I won't be mean in pursuing my truth. No, as soon as we say there's no absolute truth, people become meaner in pursuing what they think. So number 1, we need to become truth seekers. And by the way, is truth important? Yeah. And I think actually becoming truth seekers, having the mindset of being a truth seeker, produces civility. Now, when I mentioned truth seekers, the word that jumped out to all of you was the word truth. That was not the most important word in that phrase. What was the most important word? Seekers. We are truth seekers. We are one beggar helping other beggars try to find a morsel of truth. We need to focus on truth, yes. We need to find truth. We need to seek it. But the key thing is we should be seeking it. And most people stop seeking truth because they think they found it. And once you thought you found it, then you're not really open to dialogue and discussion. Number 2, we need a culture that has humility. We need to be humble. You know, a humble person is much less likely to get in a heated argument with someone. It's the egos that get in the way. It's the lack of humility that produces argument. You know, if I get up here and say, I think the earth is flat, and some of you might challenge me on that, right? Well, if I am open-minded, I'm willing to engage you in a discourse where we don't get angry. And you can cite pictures from the moon or pictures from the space shuttles or whatever. We'd have this little discussion, this debate. But when all of a sudden one person says, no, I know I'm right, and I'm not open to more evidence, that's when we get conflict. It's that lack of humility. So we need, number 1, to be truth seekers. Number 2, to seek humility. Number 3, kindness. We need to be kind to others. You know, I coach high school debaters in a variety of different contexts. And I was doing a lecture on cross-examination techniques. In our form of debate, we do cross-examination. Not that much different than an attorney would on the witness stand. And I was going through these cross-examination techniques, and I had a very accomplished debater in the back of the room. He was probably my best debater that particular year. He would go on to be 4th in the nation at the end of the year. And I said to him, Thomas, of all the debaters you compete against, who is the best cross-examiner? And he throws out a name of a young lady with a club in Fresno. And it kind of surprised me a little bit because this was the most soft-spoken, gentle, humble, demure young lady in the whole debate league. Not exactly what you would think that this powerful young man debater would say was the most powerful cross-examiner. And so I queried him a little bit about that. He says, yeah, it's interesting. He says, she can totally destroy me with her questions, and I enjoy every minute of it. You know, we should be the kind of people, when engagement happens, that the person we're engaging enjoys every minute of it. Kind. Number 4, we need to become a society that enjoys the D's, the letter D. 3 D's, dialogue, discussion, and debate. And I think most people fear the idea of debate, and oftentimes the idea of dialogue and discussion. We need to be a society who welcomes dialogue and discussion. We need to welcome the 3 Ds of dialogue, discussion, and debate. Now, the trouble in America is we've lost sight of these 4 objectives. We don't have a society that are really, truly truth seekers. We don't have a society that's humble. We've lost kindness, and we've lost the desire for discussion and debate. You know, how many of you, anybody here live in a really old home, like over 100 years old? Anybody? Nobody does? You know, I speak on the East Coast, and you got lots of people that live in older homes. A lot of older homes in Europe and the East Coast have a room in the home with a very interesting name. The room is called the parlor. Now, the stereotype is almost true for the parlor. The parlor is when a young man comes courting, where the young man and the father sit and have some discussion before the young man takes a young lady out on a date. The parlor is where, after dinner was over, people retreated to discuss the issues of the day. And I don't know how much you've studied history, but our forefathers in early America loved the idea of the parlor. And I'm sure in most cases it might have been a cigar or whiskey or something that accompanied the parlor visit. But nevertheless, they're there, and they're there to discuss the issues of the day after dinner. If guests come over, it's assumed when the meal is done, you go to the parlor. By the way, for you linguists out there, the word parlor, the root word is parler, which is French to speak or to talk. The purpose of the parlor was to speak and talk, and more than that, it was to do the D things, the dialogue, the discussion, and the debate. And some of the most powerful ideological times, when nations are struggling to overcome evils, most of those evils that end up getting attacked in society, those evils started by being discussed in the parlor. And oftentimes debated in the parlor, where people didn't agree. We need to still be able to engage discussion. And I guess my point here is that even though we want to have good relationships, we want to have friendships, we don't want to have animosity, we can't avoid having discussion. And I would argue if you avoid the discussion, if you avoid the debate, you're going to have more animosity. With our high school debaters, it's very interesting. This gets to be very competitive, especially at the national level. For a lot of these kids, there are hundreds of thousands of dollars of scholarship money at stake, as well as trophies and reputation. And you know, these kids spend years rising to a certain level. And I'll see accomplished debaters, for example, the national tournament last year, the final round, when we're down to 2 teams, one of whom will be the national champion. We've got a team from California and a team from Colorado. And these 2 teams had hit each other, debated each other once early in the year, but hadn't debated each other for quite some time. And they'd been preparing for each other. I mean, folks, you should see the level of preparation. You know, this is something close to war. And there's an audience in the room, I don't know how many people, 1,000, 2,000 people getting ready to watch this round. They're introducing the teams. And the 2 debate teams, there's 2 on each team, 2 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. They're not here at the table. Do you know where they are? They're in the hallway praying together before this debate round. And when that round is over, by the way, a hard-fought debate round. But everyone's gracious. They're fighting over the arguments. They're not ad hominem attacking each other. When the round is over, there's quite a gap in time well, they tabulate and they have a big awards ceremony. And they give all the tournament results, including that final round's results. And they do a meal. So while the tabulation team is doing all the ballot tabbing and that sort of thing, keeping track of the results, there's dinner. Guess who's having dinner together? Those two teams. You see, you can engage in active dialogue, even formal debate, and like the person you're communicating with. Okay, what does that mean for us personally? Okay, a couple things. Number one, and you know, those first four I gave you, those are big picture societal things. None of us are going to change societal attitudes about this overnight. But we at least need to know where society ought to go, and that's the four directions we should go. But let's talk about what you and I can do individually. How can we engage people in productive, truth-seeking conversations without making enemies and actually make friends? Number one, listen. We need to learn to listen. So when I have a potential disagreement with someone, the very first thing I should want to do is hear what they have to say. Now, what's the norm? What does our human nature want to do? I want to say, hey, you need to believe what I believe, right? Here's all the reasons. No, we got it backwards. First thing we do is we're going to listen to them and their perspective. Why? Because we're truth seekers and we're seeking, and we may not be right, and we want to hear what they have to say. Also, the best way to make a friend is to listen. True? I mean, you get all these people that write, you know, who's the guy that wrote the book, it's used by a lot of sales organizations, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Okay, Dale Carnegie. You know, the idea is you pay attention, listen. By the way, great little expression. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Take that one to the bank. People don't care what you know until they know how much you care. Listen to what they have to say. Number two, ask questions. And there's a dual purpose here. One is asking questions shows you're interested. It also gives you a chance to make sure you understand their perspective properly. And a question also can be a powerful tool for making them think about things they wouldn't normally have thought about. You can say, well, what about this? You know, or what would you do in this case? Or what's your philosophy say about this? Ask these questions and allow them to answer. Again, you'll make a friend. You'll learn more about their position. You'll be a true seeker because you might learn something. And if their position has a weakness, asking the right question will bring it out. You know, I don't know how many of you ever read Plato or anything about Socrates' dialogues. But this idea of the Socratic method where the teacher teaches with no other technique than asking questions. And maybe in college or at a seminar or conference, some of you might have experienced that. Have you ever found someone who they can teach and they're a powerful teacher and they never tell you anything? All they do is ask you questions. And they teach by asking questions. We can teach, we can persuade by asking questions. So we educate ourselves, we challenge the other person, and hopefully we come one step closer to truth. So number one, listen. Number two, ask questions. Number three, be empathetic. You know, walk a mile in someone else's moccasins. Life experiences do impact what we believe. Really do. And while you're listening and asking questions, it's not a bad idea to know something about the life experience of this person. Is there a reason why they hold this position on this particular issue? You know, do they hate Christianity? Or do they hate charity work? Or do they hate the poor? You know, do they hate the homeless? Maybe something happened. What happened? What in their background brought them to that position? You can address it better by making empathetic. And really the word empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes. It's not sympathy. Sympathy is to feel sorry for someone. Empathy is to try to be them, to try to think like them, to try to be in their shoes. You see the difference between sympathy and empathy? I can sympathize for someone, oh, that poor person. But empathy is when I take it further and say, wow, let me put myself in that position. So number one, listen. Number two, ask questions. Number three, be empathetic. Number four, test your own views. This goes back to humility. You should always be testing what we believe is what I believe correct. You know, is it, and by the way, what you believe in testing may not be totally wrong, but maybe you discover that you need to tweak it a little bit to bring it more in line with real truth. But test your own views. See, we tend to test everybody else's views first, right? We need to test our views first. And then we can engage people to test their views. Number 5. At this point, now you can offer your ideas and your perspectives. You see, you earn the right to offer your perspectives and your ideas. You earn step 5 by doing steps 1 through 4. And by the way, if you do steps 1 through 4 sincerely, with a sincere heart, not just a checklist, oh, Mike Winther said I should do this, I'm checking it off. You know, the heart has to be there, right? People will know the difference if you're truly interested in the answer to your question. If you're asking a question because Mike Winther said, oh, I should ask a question, that won't be perceived as sincere. Make sure it's sincere. But when you go through those steps sincerely, now you have an audience for your views. And now what do? You allow them to ask you questions. And now the shoe is on the other foot. And we need to make sure that our self-worth isn't tied up in what we believe. If I discover that something I believe is wrong or inaccurate, does that make me worth any less as a person? We tend to think that. We tend to get our egos tied up in this. It is so easy for us to get our egos wrapped up in things they shouldn't be wrapped up in. I noticed this as my kids got to be teenagers. My wife and I talked about this a lot. It's so easy as a parent for your ego, your self-worth, to be tied up in what your kids are doing. You know, so if your kids are doing good things, you know, and they're serving the community and doing all these things, you know, man, I'm a pretty good parent, you know. But when your kids are having trouble, they're in rebellion, whatever it might happen to be, all of a sudden, our self-worth goes down. Or at least our perception of our self-worth goes down, right? There's so many things in life where we can tie up our own self-worth into some outcome. How well our kids do. If you're a business manager, your self-worth can be tied up in how good sales are or what the bottom line is. And in conversations and dialogue, we get our self-worth tied up in who's winning the debate. It's not about who's winning the debate. Now, a couple things you got to know. When you're engaging someone in dialogue, discourse, or debate, there's a general rule. You want to win. But let me redefine winning. Let me tell you when you lose. You lose if anybody in the conversation gets mad. You win if nobody gets mad. See, you don't win when they agree with me. And by the way, do we all want everybody to agree with us? Be honest, come on. We all want everybody to agree with us, right? Because we think we're right. Don't define winning as everybody agreeing with you. In a dialogue, a discussion, a conversation, a debate, whatever you want to call it, you win when you walk away from that dialogue and discussion as friends. And generally, if you do it right, you're going to be, one or both of you will be closer to the truth. And you know, if the person you're talking to is wrong, most people don't change their opinion in one conversation. It's gradual, right? A teaspoon here and a teaspoon there. Guess what? You probably, if you're wrong, you're not going to change your opinion in one conversation. Although you should be open to it, but it typically is gradual. Persuasion is a gradual process, and we should enjoy that process. You know, I've used these terms, dialogue, discussion, and debate. In the debate world, we talk about arguments. And if you go to almost any group in society and say, is an argument a good thing or a bad thing, what are people going to say? It's a bad thing. Well, there's a difference, however. In the organized debate world, we don't see an argument as a verb. An argument is a noun. Now, if you know your parts of speech, argument as a verb is an action. Verbs show action, right? So an argument is what most people think of when you're engaging, where you say, yeah, but, no, yeah, and it gets a little heated. That's an argument. But an argument as a noun is like saying all dogs have ears. Merlin has ears, therefore Merlin is a dog. Okay, that's an argument. A logical syllogism is an argument. You can be engaged with someone in a discussion with lots of arguments and never be at odds with them. Do you see the difference between an argument as a verb and an argument as a noun? We need to make sure that if there's an argument, it's a noun. So an argument might be 87% of people do whatever. That's an argument. It's just throwing out a claim. It's a fact claim or a logical claim. And there's a book I'm going to recommend to all of you, and I highly recommend it, as a matter of fact. You can go on Amazon and order it, or wherever you want. It's written by a gentleman named Greg Koukl. How many of you have heard of Greg Koukl? Anybody in this room? A few of you. Greg Koukl is a Christian apologist. He speaks on college campuses a lot. He engages in a lot of debates where he's a Christian apologist. He's on college campuses debating everything from creation to the existence of Jesus, all sorts of other issues. But Greg Koukl has been famous not necessarily for his philosophical beliefs, but for his mannerisms and his technique. He is one of the most likable guys you ever could listen to. And Greg Koukl wrote a book, well, he's written a lot of them, but one called Tactics. And Tactics is really a book about how to engage people and engage the conflicts of ideas in a winsome and likable way. Yeah.
Is it with a K? Or
it is. It's Koukl. Okay. Very unique spelling. So Greg is the first name, or Gregory, I guess. The last name is Koukl. Pardon me. And the book is called Tactics. And so far as I know, I'm getting no royalties on the book. So, but there is the second chapter. He talks about the idea of argument in a noun sense versus a verb sense. Now, he doesn't use those terms, but that's what he's talking about. And so not only does he give you techniques for how to engage people, but he also discusses the idea that we have to still make sure we are seeking truth. You see, I think what happens for a lot of people who are people that are well-meaning, we see what happens on TV or on the internet, and we see people behaving badly, people creating the great divide, right? And what it makes us want to do? It makes us not want to engage in any discussion with anybody for fear of going into that abyss of hatred, dislike, bad feelings. We have to make sure that we don't let the fact that a lot of people do conversation badly keep us from having the conversation. We have to make sure that because a lot of people have dialogue badly, it can't keep us from dialogue. We have to make sure because a lot of people have discussion badly that it doesn't keep us from discussion. And we need to make sure because people do debate badly that doesn't keep us from debate. We just need to follow these texts. Go through these steps. This is how you engage people in a likable way. And let me close with this. I can give you all the techniques, all the mechanics, but the heart is the key. If you are having a debate or a conversation or dialogue or whatever it is your heart that will determine the outcome of that conversation. And if your heart is one of love for that person, if your heart is one of wanting to be a truth seeker, but you're not planning to dump the whole dump truck on somebody all at once, if your heart is right, you will diffuse the other party who might get a little heated. And keep in mind, how do we know who wins the debate? No one walks away mad. Matter of fact, you win when you're closer to that person than you were when you started. Thank you.
Thank you. Go get well. Go get well. Well, thank you. Around your tables, there's a question we're going to ask you to come back and have a conversation around. So again, what's one takeaway or action point I could apply to my work or life from this morning's talk? So what's a takeaway that you can put into action today? And how could this takeaway have made a difference in that example you had about the conversation you had or the conflict you had that didn't go well? Remember that first one? So just go ahead and get around the tables, and we'll be back in a few minutes. So, by the way, too, keep your answers short so that everybody has a chance to talk, okay? So if you're a teacher, don't teach today. Yeah, just tell people. And Craig, I love teachers. It's not teachers. Okay. Going to give you 2 more minutes, so please make sure everybody around the table has got a chance to talk. And again, if you're a teacher, don't teach. All right. You know, I appreciated Mike's conversation. I was at his talk this morning. I was at Old Mill Cafe, and I come up to the check stand, and there's somebody who's been in town for a long time. And sometimes there's this group of they're men that sit around the table, they talk loud, and they solve all the problems of the world. And of course, their answer is always the answer that, if they would just do what I say. So I'm at the checkout counter, and I've known this guy for a while, so I'm waiting in line to pay, and or somebody else is paying for me. I forget how that worked, but yeah, somebody else. Yeah, I forgot my credit card that morning. So, that's a nonprofit world. So I just said it. Some of you business guys are going, that's not how it works. So I go up to I was standing in line, and he says, hey, what do you, and he comes up to me with this swag. Hey, what do you think about? And since I've known him for a while, and I knew that he was going to either have a conversation with me or want to fight with me, right? And you've seen those people. So he comes up to me and he says, hey, what do you think about? And I stopped him and I said, wait, you don't care what I think. So why don't you just tell me what you think? Tell me what you want to tell me. And he was kind of taken aback. I said, you tell me. You don't care what I think. So he proceeded to tell me what he thought. And then I said, all right, thanks, man. And I paid my bill and left. So I don't know if that was how did I do? Was that a, I did poorly? Thanks, Derek. Okay, yeah. And I came over here to this table and shared my heart, and they just made fun of me. It was just, oh my gosh. So, Well, I hope we'll continue to laugh. And by the way, if there's somebody in your life and you probably have a face or two, people that, boy, you wish that they could learn how to have civil conversations, do not say to them, you need to listen to this talk today. So try to figure out how to give that information without slamming them. So my wife sees that coming a mile away. Well, I'm going to give you a couple of things. There's some great things happening in our community. And again, how excellent leaders act and how what they do and how they act. All of you are that way. So I want to continue in your circle. I do know, in all seriousness, how difficult it is to maintain sanity. I won't say who it is, but there's in the room, there's, whenever you have a meeting, there's a group that show up to your public meeting and don't seem to know how to have civil conversations without calling you names and accusing and yelling and all that. And I'm so sorry about that. My wife would say, just work hard not to stoop. So anyway, I pray for you, encourage you, all of us, as we work to be models of civil conversation. Because I know my ego surely gets in the way fast, and I want to win and run over people. So I don't know what. Anyway, thanks, Mike. Let me give you a couple things that's going on. There's some great things that are going on, and I want to first introduce Stephen Berkowitz, who with the Redwood Center and Valley Recovery Resources, right? Working with our community that's working with addictions and just working to bring back families. So I'm going to give you whatever he told you.
I really just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to all of you from Redwood Family Center. I've often heard that what we do at Redwood Family Center, providing life-transforming services for women with children, providing clean and sober housing, is impossible. From other county leaders in other counties and other communities. What I know is God has made it the impossible possible in Stanislaus County because of you. It's because of your innovation. It's because of your partnership. It's because of City Ministry Network. It's because of us willing to openly have these conversations, have these debates in this room, that we can move forward and do what we do. Because of that and because of you, we opened Redwood Family Treatment Center on January 2nd, where we have 12 residential drug and alcohol beds for women so that they can get the clean time that they need to enter clean and sober housing services. And that's what I wanted to do. Celebrate today and say thank you. We have our ribbon cutting on February 8th, next Thursday at 3 o'clock. And the facility is located right here, straight across the parking lot. Love to see you there. Love to have you look at the brochures on the table. We are available.
Good job, Steve. Thank you so much. All of you, so many of you are doing some incredible work. All of you are. So thank you, Steve. I want to also, too, so there's some slides right behind you, so I'm just going to go ahead and run through them real quick. And that's not the one. Is that the one right there? The Global Leadership Summit. I know we're not hammering you over the head. It's in August. Just make sure it's in your calendar. And come as a team. Work on not coming by yourself, but come as a team. We're going to continue to shift the narrative about what excellent leadership looks like. And this is one of those pieces where we really believe for all of us to get in the same room together to hear excellent communicators as well as excellent thoughts and ideas. So make sure it's just on your calendar. And when you come, great, come. If you can, though, bring people around you that could really walk with you in leadership. This is one of the venues we have with 5 different gatherings around the community every month, and inspires for women, put together by women. And it's been an awesome time. They had about 60 women last month at Skewers, and it continues to be a 60 minutes of just real power and incredible community with women. So I want to encourage you, if you know somebody who'd love to come and participate, please do that. Where's Sandy? You just wave your hand, Sandy. She's right there. And Leah Ashford is somewhere over here. She is over there. And just check with Leah. Next month, again, what excellent leaders look like and what they do. One of the qualities that we felt that excellent leaders need to have is this notion, the strength of resilience, the art of the bounce back, the ability to bounce back from failure. And I've asked they're all young, a young man who experienced real public failure. Jim Applegate, some of you know him. His business crashed, and his name was all over the paper, just like a lot of people's business. Just life happened, and he's bounced back. And so we've asked him to come and share his story about some skill sets that he's learned And he's been really reticent. I asked him last year if he'd be willing to tell his story. He didn't want to tell his story. He just wasn't ready to talk about a deep public failure that he had, an embarrassing failure. And so he's going to come next month and just tell his story. And he said to me the other day, he said, now, I want you to know, and you need to tell everybody, my story's not finished. Jim, we're good. Because I think all of us, if we all said, oh, his story's finished, I think we'd all roll our eyes, right? So he's going to share with us just the art of the bounce back. What's some things that he's learning about resilience, about bouncing back when life happens? Whether it's your fault, their fault, nobody's fault. Life happens. And so the art of the bounce back. So if you've ever been in a season of just needed to be reminded about the skill set of resilience, excellent leaders bounce back. And we learn from our failures and our mistakes, and surely just a deep sense of humility. So the art of the bounce back, that's next month. A couple more things. If you want to, if your marriage fight night, it's a comedy. It's going to be a blast. And I've got 4 tickets already, so I've got a young couple that's coming with me. So that's at the Gala Center. There's the information there if you want to get in there. Also, too, want to bring up Catalyst Next, where Aaron Crumrine. One of the things that we have discovered is that there's Thursday morning at 7 o'clock a.m. is not always a time for young men and women to want to get out of bed early, because they got to bed at 2 in the morning, right? So over the last couple of years, we've talked, and I know my friend James right here, we said, no, we all need to be in the same room together, and no, we need to do that, because the young and the old, we all need to mix together. Yes. On the other hand, there's this whole group of the culture of millennials, not a generation, but the whole culture of how they see life. So we wanted to create a space for them, and Aaron is my resident millennial expert. So Aaron, tell us what we're doing, what you all are up to.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I do like to spend time with them. I love to. I'm at the top end of that. It's 40-ish, so I can be included. It's not limited to that, but we are. I guess for me, the thing that's exciting, and especially coming this morning, is I think there's good news in a culture that is struggling. They crave what we're talking about this morning. And we actually want to begin with this group to kind of put some of that stuff into practice, because they respond to it in these younger generations. So that's our objective, is to be where community knowledge is exchanged, that dialogue, those things are happening, resourcing begins to happen, that through those discussions we move forward and begin to impact the community. So we're getting together at 6:30 in the evening, because I went to bed at 1 o'clock this morning, 1 o'clock this morning. And so we're doing 6:30 to 8:30. We're doing it at Heart and Soul. It'll be the last Thursday of the month, February, March, and April, and we'll see how far we can give it legs and run with. So,
thanks. Thank you. So he's been teaching me that millennials are not a generation, they're a culture and how they see life. So 6:30 at night, probably won't be there. I'll be in my pajamas and in bed reading at 8:30 after NCIS at 7. So I'm just teasing. I'll be there. Yeah, no, I'm not. That wasn't very civil, Mr. Winther. Let me bless you, and then we're gone. Father, Master, thank you for the time we could have together. This notion of civil conversation, for me, is about humility, that I don't always have to win, and I just want to understand. God is so hard for me. On the other hand, thank you that we have skills, and we are going to move this city and our communities forward as those of us in the room who are leaders of leaders, who have followings and constituency, will model what it means to have a civil conversation. And Lord, I want to capture the thought of our civil servants that are in the room, how difficult it is in this season to lead publicly in any public institution. So teach us, those of us who present in front of them, how to have a civil conversation. And Lord, may these times not just be about what we're learning, but may we take one thought today and may I share it with somebody else. In Christ's name, amen. Hey, listen, it's 8:13, but take a few minutes and just talk to each other, okay? See you later. Bless you.